If you're over 60 and your doctor has started using words like creatinine, GFR, kidney function, or we need to watch this, I want you to stay with me for the next few minutes, because what you do with your plate this week may matter more than you realize. And if you've also noticed ankle swelling by evening, more trips to the bathroom at night, a heavy kind of fatigue that doesn't make sense, or that strange moment when you look at your lab report and feel your stomach drop, this is especially for you. Because when creatinine starts climbing, most people panic and focus on what they have to stop eating. But that is not always the best place to start. Sometimes the smarter question is this: what can you put on your plate that takes some pressure off aging kidneys instead of adding more? Today I'm going to walk you through 5 vegetables that do exactly that. And one of them is probably sitting in a grocery store near you right now, getting ignored every single day. I'm Dr. Jessica Williams, and I've spent years talking with older adults who feel blindsided by kidney numbers they didn't see coming. What I hear over and over sounds almost exactly the same. Doctor, I'm scared. I don't understand these labs. And every time I search online, I get a different answer. So what am I actually supposed to eat now? If that sounds like you, I want you to know something right away. You are not behind. You are not foolish. And you are definitely not the only person over 60 trying to make sense of conflicting advice, while the internet throws miracle teas, kidney cleanses, and dramatic promises at you from every direction. Let's slow this down and make it simple. Creatinine is a waste product your body makes naturally every day, mostly from normal muscle activity. Healthy kidneys filter it out. When kidneys lose some of that filtering ability, creatinine can rise. But this is where a lot of people get confused. A higher creatinine number does not automatically mean food caused the problem, and food alone will not magically erase it by next Tuesday. Creatinine can be influenced by kidney disease, dehydration, medications, muscle mass, blood pressure, blood sugar, infection, and other factors your doctor has to look at as a whole. That's why I never want people to hear a message like this and think one vegetable is going to perform a miracle. That's not how real medicine works. What food can do, though, is incredibly important. The right foods can lower the day-to-day strain on your kidneys. They can help reduce excess sodium, they can support steadier blood pressure, they can make it easier to eat fewer heavily processed foods, they can improve fiber intake, and help you build meals that are kinder to your body overall. In other words, they create a better environment for the kidney function you still have. And after 60, protecting what you still have is often the game that matters most. Now here's the misconception that hurts people. Many older adults assume the answer is to buy exotic powders, expensive supplements, or so-called detox products with words like cleanse and flush on the label. But the kidneys are already your body's filtration system. They don't need a gimmick. What they need is less unnecessary burden, less sodium, less processed food, fewer habits that quietly push blood pressure and fluid retention in the wrong direction, and more foods that are practical enough to use again and again. Before I give you the first vegetable, there's one more thing you need to hear. There is no single kidney diet that fits every person. Your stage matters. Your potassium level matters. Your phosphorus level matters. Your medications matter. Whether you have diabetes matters. Whether your doctor has told you to limit fluids matters. So as you listen today, think of this as smart, evidence-based guidance for common patterns, not a replacement for individualized medical advice. That distinction may sound small, but for kidney health, it is everything. And now let's start with a vegetable that almost nobody gets excited about until they understand what it does. The first one is red cabbage. If you're over 60 and trying to eat in a way that supports kidney function without making your meals feel depressing, red cabbage is one of the most underrated foods in the produce section. The reason I like it so much has nothing to do with trends and everything to do with balance. It gives you color, crunch, fiber, and helpful plant compounds without the kind of nutritional baggage that can complicate things for people whose kidneys are already under stress. One reason red cabbage stands out is that it tends to fit more easily into lower potassium meal planning than many people expect. That matters because once kidney function declines, some people have trouble keeping potassium in the right range. And potassium is one of those nutrients that sounds harmless until it isn't. Too much can affect muscle function and even the heart. That doesn't mean potassium is bad. It means your kidneys may not handle excess the way they used to, and that is a very different conversation. Red cabbage also helps in a more practical way. It replaces less helpful foods. I want you to think about how a lot of meals start to look when people get busy, tired, or overwhelmed. White bread, salty crackers, packaged side dishes, canned soups, frozen convenience foods with sodium hiding in every bite. Red cabbage can move into that space beautifully. Shred it into a slaw with a light vinegar dressing, add it to fish tacos, stir it into a skillet with onions, fold it into a salad with olive oil and lemon. Suddenly you have something fresh and satisfying where a processed side dish used to sit. And there's another reason I like it for older adults. It lasts. You can buy one head of cabbage and get multiple meals out of it. That sounds small, but when someone lives alone, cooks for one, or hates wasting groceries, that practicality matters. The best kidney-friendly food in the world won't help you if it rots in the crisper drawer while you order takeout. Now here's the mistake people make with cabbage. They cook it to death, they boil it until the color turns dull, the texture goes limp, and the whole thing feels like punishment. Don't do that. You want it lightly cooked or served raw, still lively, still appealing. If eating healthier feels like losing everything you enjoy, most people won't stay with it. The real goal is not suffering, the goal is consistency. And that leads directly to the second vegetable, because once people realize kidney-supportive eating can still taste like real food, they become much more willing to keep going. The second vegetable is cauliflower. I know cauliflower does not sound dramatic. It doesn't sound like a secret. It doesn't sound like the kind of food people make big promises about online. And that is exactly why I trust it. In health, the foods that quietly help the most are often the ones boring enough to be real. Cauliflower is useful because it gives older adults something they desperately need when kidney numbers start shifting. Options. If your doctor has told you to be more careful with sodium, watch portions, and pay attention to certain minerals, you can't live on fear alone. You need replacement foods. You need foods that can step into familiar meal patterns without wrecking the plan. Cauliflower does that extremely well. It can stand in for heavier sides that people tend to overeat. Mashed cauliflower can replace a giant mound of salted instant potatoes. Cauliflower rice can help shrink oversized portions of refined starch. Roasted cauliflower can take the place of salty frozen sides. And unlike advice that sounds good in theory but never survives real life, this actually works in kitchens. I also like cauliflower for texture. That may sound like a minor detail, but it's not. Appetite changes as people age. Chewing changes. Digestion changes. Food tolerances change. Some older adults don't want crunchy raw vegetables. Others don't want greasy food. Some need something soft enough to eat comfortably but not so mushy it feels like hospital food. Cauliflower sits in that sweet spot. It can be roasted, steamed, mashed, sautéed, or blended into soup. It's flexible, and flexibility is one of the most powerful tools in long-term eating. There's another important point here. Cauliflower can help lower dependence on foods that carry far more sodium than people realize. When people say they barely use salt, I often ask what their meals actually look like. Toasted sandwich bread, deli meat, soup from a carton, frozen entrees, store-bought sauces, seasoning packets. That's where a huge amount of sodium comes from. So even if you never touch the salt shaker, Your kidneys may still be dealing with a daily flood of sodium from convenience foods. Cauliflower helps you move away from that pattern without feeling deprived. Preparation matters here too. If you steam it until it's pale and waterlogged, no one wants it. Roast it with olive oil, black pepper, a little garlic, and a squeeze of lemon afterward, and now it becomes something you actually look forward to. That shift matters more than people think. The easier a healthy food is to repeat, the more powerful it becomes over time. But cauliflower also sets up a bigger truth. A lot of kidney nutrition is not about dramatic foods. It's about flavor strategy. And that brings me to the third vegetable, which may be one of the most useful tools in this entire conversation. The third one is garlic. And before you think, wait, is garlic really a vegetable worth talking about for kidneys? Hear me out. Garlic matters because flavor matters. If you can't make food taste good without drowning it in sodium, you will never stick with a kidney-conscious eating pattern for long. Garlic helps solve that problem. One of the biggest drivers of kidney decline is uncontrolled blood pressure. High pressure over time damages the tiny blood vessels that support the kidney's filtering units. Think of it like too much force running through delicate plumbing for years. So when you lower sodium in a way you can actually maintain, you're not just improving taste habits, you are potentially reducing one of the quiet forces working against your kidneys every day. Garlic makes that possible because it gives food depth, warmth, and satisfaction without relying on salt-heavy shortcuts. Fresh garlic in vegetables, fresh garlic in soups, fresh garlic in simple skillet meals, fresh garlic rubbed into chicken or fish before cooking. That one ingredient can begin retraining your palate away from the processed food flavor intensity that keeps so many people trapped. And let me tell you something fascinating that a lot of people notice once they make this change. After a few weeks of cooking with real flavor builders like garlic, onion, lemon, vinegar, and herbs, restaurant food and packaged food can start tasting shockingly salty. That's when you know your taste buds are adjusting. That's not deprivation, that's recovery. Garlic may also offer something beyond flavor. It contains natural compounds that have been studied for antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects. I always want to be careful here. I am not saying garlic repairs damaged kidneys. I am saying that in a body dealing with vascular stress, metabolic stress, and inflammation, choosing foods with helpful plant compounds instead of ultra-processed alternatives makes sense. That is a very different claim, and it is the honest one. Now here is the trick most people never hear. If you chop or crush garlic and throw it straight into a blazing hot pan, you may miss some of the benefit people are trying to get from it. Let it sit for a few minutes after chopping before cooking. That simple pause helps certain beneficial compounds form more fully. Tiny detail, big difference. Of course, more is not always better. If garlic bothers your stomach, if you're on blood thinners, or if your doctor has you on a very specific medical plan, that matters. But for many adults over 60, garlic becomes the bridge between I know what I should eat and I can actually live this way. And before I give you the next two vegetables, let me say this. If you're finding this helpful, stay with me, because the fourth one is where a lot of people finally realize kidney-friendly eating does not have to look bland, beige, and joyless. That idea has scared people for far too long. The fourth vegetable is red bell pepper. If I could hand one kidney-conscious vegetable to someone who says, I'm tired of food that feels like a restriction, this would be near the top of my list. Red bell pepper brings brightness, sweetness, crunch, and versatility, and that combination is incredibly valuable when you're trying to protect kidney function without hating every meal. Why does it matter? Because the more enjoyable your food becomes, the more likely you are to keep choosing it. People overcomplicate this. They think success comes from willpower alone. It doesn't. Success comes from making healthier choices easier, more appealing, and more repeatable than the old ones. Red bell pepper helps do exactly that. It tends to fit more easily into lower potassium meal planning than several vegetables people overuse without thinking. It also brings vitamin C and other colorful plant compounds that support overall health. Again, not a miracle, not a cure, but helpful? Absolutely, especially when those nutrients are arriving in a whole food that can crowd out salty snack foods, packaged sides, or takeout fillers. There's also a gut connection here that people don't talk about enough. The digestive system and the kidneys are not living separate lives. When the diet is low in fiber and heavy in processed food, the body can end up dealing with more unwanted metabolic waste. Real plant foods help shift that picture. Red bell pepper is an easy way to build more of that into the day without asking someone to eat a giant bowl of steamed vegetables they secretly resent. And here is what makes red bell pepper so useful after 60. It is low effort. Slice it and eat it raw. Toss it into eggs. Add it to tuna salad. Sauté it with onions. Use it with chicken, fish, or rice. Roast it lightly and add it to wraps. When a food works for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, it becomes powerful because repetition becomes easy. But there's one thing I want you to notice. Every vegetable I've mentioned so far does more than provide nutrients. Each one helps you escape a bad pattern. Red cabbage replaces processed sides. Cauliflower replaces heavy, salty starches. Garlic helps you cut back on sodium. Red bell pepper makes healthy meals more enjoyable and more likely to happen. See what we're doing here? We're not chasing a miracle food. We're rebuilding the structure of how you eat. And that's why the fifth vegetable may be the most important one of all, because it ties the whole strategy together. The fifth one is onion. Not because it's flashy, not because it's trendy, but because onions make healthy cooking livable. If you want your kidneys to face less stress, you need a way to cook food that tastes satisfying without leaning on bottled sauces, gravy mixes, instant soup bases, and sodium-packed shortcuts. Onion helps you do that better than almost any other vegetable. Onions bring natural sweetness when cooked, sharpness when raw, and depth in just about every style of meal. They work in soups, skillet meals, salads, scrambles, roasts, and simple one-pan dinners. And that matters because if a food only fits one recipe, it won't change your life. But if it fits 20, now it has power. They also contain plant compounds that have been studied for antioxidant and anti-inflammatory benefits. Once again, I'm not overselling it. I'm not calling onions a treatment. I'm saying they belong in a pattern of eating that reduces the daily dietary forces pushing kidney health in the wrong direction. What people often miss is this: the onion itself is rarely the problem. What people do to it is the problem. Deep frying it, smothering it in salty batter, hiding it inside processed casseroles, drenching it in store-bought sauces loaded with sodium and additives. Then they say, "But I'm eating vegetables." Yes, technically, but not in a way that helps your kidneys. Used well, onions can change the whole tone of a meal. Sauté onion with cabbage and bell pepper, roast onion with cauliflower, add onion to homemade soup with lower sodium broth. Build flavor from the pan instead of from a packet. This is how people stop feeling trapped by a restrictive diet, not by finding one superfood, but by learning how to make ordinary foods work harder. Now, if I stopped here, you might feel motivated. But motivation alone won't protect your kidneys if you keep making the mistakes that silently cancel out the benefit of good foods. And this next part may be even more important than the list itself. The first big mistake is assuming that anything healthy is safe in any amount. It isn't. Portion size still matters. Your lab work still matters. A food can be reasonable in one serving and much less reasonable in a giant one. This is especially important with potassium. Some people hear vegetables are healthy and assume they should pile the plate as high as possible. But kidney nutrition is not that simple. You need the right foods in the right context. The second mistake is turning everything into a juice or smoothie because it feels easier. I understand the temptation. Drinking nutrition sounds efficient, but when you pack multiple servings into one glass, you can take in a lot very quickly, and for some people with kidney issues, that is not ideal. Whole foods slow you down. Chewing changes how you experience food. Meals built around real ingredients are often easier to control than concentrated drinks that go down in 5 minutes. The third mistake is destroying good vegetables with sodium. This one is huge. A perfectly sensible vegetable can become far less kidney-friendly when it's buried in soy sauce, canned soup concentrate, seasoning blends, bottled marinades, bouillon, or restaurant sauces. If you take nothing else from this script, take this. Your kidneys care about patterns more than intentions. It's not enough to mean well. You have to look at what is actually happening on the plate. The fourth mistake is ignoring hydration until the lab work gets scary. Now, hydration is not one size fits all. Some people absolutely need personalized fluid guidance, especially with advanced kidney disease, heart failure, or certain medications. But many older adults simply don't drink enough throughout the day. They sip coffee, maybe some tea, maybe a little juice, and by evening they've barely had enough fluid. Mild dehydration can concentrate the blood and make kidney numbers look worse. So if you have not been told to restrict fluids, this is a conversation worth having with your doctor, because appropriate hydration still matters. The fifth mistake is trying to fix everything with food while ignoring blood pressure and blood sugar. This is where people lose the plot. If your blood pressure is uncontrolled, if diabetes is running wild, if medications are not being taken correctly, vegetables alone cannot carry that burden. Kidney protection is a team effort. Food matters. Medication adherence matters. Monitoring matters. Follow-up matters. A lot of people want one dramatic fix because it feels simpler. Real improvement usually comes from several quieter things done well, over and over. And here is the emotional trap I want to protect you from. You make some changes. You eat better for a week or two. Then your creatinine does not suddenly plummet and you feel defeated. Please do not measure progress that way. Sometimes the first win is not a dramatic drop. Sometimes the first win is that your numbers stop climbing so fast. Sometimes it's less swelling. Sometimes it's steadier blood pressure. Sometimes it's fewer processed meals, better digestion, or more stable energy. Those are not small wins. Those are signs your body is under less strain. If you are over 60, this matters even more, because your goal is not perfection. Your goal is preservation. Protecting function, slowing decline, making better choices often enough that your kidneys are dealing with less daily abuse than they were before. That may not sound glamorous, but it is powerful medicine in real life. So let's bring this all together in the simplest way possible. If your creatinine is rising, don't just ask, "What do I need to cut out?" Ask, "What can I start using regularly that makes my meals more kidney conscious without making my life miserable?" That is where real change begins. Red cabbage gives you crunch, fiber, color, and a smart swap for processed sides. Cauliflower gives you comfort food flexibility without the same burden as heavier, saltier choices. Garlic helps you step away from sodium dependence and build flavor the way your body actually benefits from. Red bell pepper brings brightness and enjoyment back to the plate, so healthier choices don't feel like punishment. Onion ties everything together by making simple food taste like real food again. That's the strategy. Not fear, not detox nonsense, not miracle claims. Just better patterns repeated consistently. And if your doctor has told you your GFR is dropping, your creatinine is creeping up, or your kidneys need closer watching, please do not wait for the perfect moment to start eating differently. Start with the next grocery trip. Start with one dinner. Start with one swap. Start with one skillet meal built around vegetables instead of a box, a packet, or a frozen tray loaded with sodium. Small changes sound unimpressive until you realize they are the only changes people actually sustain. I also want you to remember this. Being scared does not mean you are weak. It means you understand your health matters. But fear alone is not a plan. Action is a plan. Knowledge is a plan. Consistency is a plan. And asking better questions is a plan. So here's your takeaway. If you're over 60 and your kidney numbers are starting to move in the wrong direction, stop chasing miracle cures and start lowering the burden your kidneys face every day. Build meals around practical vegetables. Watch sodium more carefully than most people do. Respect your lab results. Stay in close contact with your medical team and use food to support the kidneys you still have, not punish yourself for the numbers you're afraid of. I'm Dr. Jessica Williams, and if this message found you at the exact moment you needed it, take that seriously. Your next lab report is not written yet. A lot of what happens from here depends on what you do consistently, not emotionally, not occasionally, but consistently. And one more thing before you go. The habits that quietly damage kidneys after 60 are not always the obvious ones. Some of them happen first thing in the morning, before breakfast even starts. That's where the next conversation needs to go, because some people are eating better and still missing the behavior that keeps pushing creatinine in the wrong direction. Don't be one of them.